nutrition reset for menopause. So for those of you that don't know Ali, she is a nutritionist who specifically helps women. I suppose transitioning sounds like a strange word to use, but just sort of moving through the phases of perimenopause and menopause, and how they deal with their any hormone imbalances, how they're nourishing their bodies, how they might deal with inflammations, how they might have gut issues, how generally that affects their overall health and wellness. Would that be right in saying?
Yeah, that's pretty much what I do. Yeah,
yeah.
I deal with
yeah.
all sorts of issues that women are going through, but really it's about thriving at life and understanding that.
Yes.
And yeah, like there's so many things, simple things that you can do, like even just getting your blood tests done, just to make sure that your levels are optimal, so you're feeling good, because you know this time of life is challenging, so you want to be doing all the basics to make sure that you can feel the best you can.
That's right. Yeah. And I think that whereas obviously most women certainly consult their GPs to understand maybe what additional medical support they might need in that time, I think that, you know, all of us can safely say I'm certainly going through actual menopause, and that whole situation of just feeling like, oh, it's just an endless, I know, time in front of the mirror, applying lotions and potions and taking this and taking that and trying, and just to the point where by the time you go to bed at night, Tom was like, I'm exhausted just from doing that, let alone, you know. So the idea of then having to you just want to be kind of done with it. But everyone is so different, and everyone is it's so individual. It's like when women go through puberty or they go through pregnancy, you know, it's, at least with pregnancy, there's an end in sight. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and look, I think that's where a bit of the confusion lies with this stage, because, I mean, this isn't the case with everyone, but perimenopause is the time of symptoms, and that's the 2 to 10 years leading up to menopause. Menopause is actually a day in time where we haven't had a period for consecutive 12 months. And look, everybody's experience is completely different. Some people don't even notice any change. They may not be in touch with their bodies, or they just may not experience anything. Other people get the full gamut of every symptom, and it can be very challenging. I mean, most women experience something, which our bodies are changing shape, and we don't, like we sort of probably gain a bit more weight across our 40s and then really notice it once we've hit post-menopause. And that's what I see a lot, where women go, oh my God, all of a sudden I've gained all this weight, where it might have been happening quite slowly across our body because of what's going on in the body. So yeah, look, getting back to that point, the good thing is for women to know that perimenopause is the time of symptoms, and there is an end in sight. So you've got to, you know, take stock and make sure you're prioritizing yourself and looking after yourself during this time. And like you said, a significant time like pregnancy, where you do have to take care of yourself. And I think that message gets lost, because it's a really significant time. It's complete recalibration of hormones in the body, and we've got to support that change. And it's not encouraged in our society. I think it is changing. I mean, I'm seeing so much more about menopause now in the mainstream media, especially the last couple of months. So that's really good. But, you know, it needs to be a collective support time.
Correct. Information from all the people in your network and support groups or health providers or friends and family, whatever, to try and sort of garner, you know, I was certainly kind of left myself kind of going, what? Like I just was not, you know, I just wasn't prepared for it. And then it kind of hit me all of a sudden. So it wasn't even like I really had I didn't feel like it was a gradual thing. I thought I was going to skive through nice and cleanly without any worry whatsoever. I was, you know, starting to feel a little bit smug about things, and all of a sudden, whack, out of nowhere comes those hot flushes. So actually, what are some of the key symptoms going through perimenopause, menopause? What are the common things that people see?
So, I mean, I guess the most talked about are the hot flushes and night sweats. They're like, everybody talks about those, and then and they're just two of probably like 100 different symptoms, and everybody experiences things differently. Like, there are things like, you know, your skin changes, you can become very dry all over your
Dry.
body. A lot of women experience that everywhere. Probably closer to menopause, it's more noticeable, but through your earlier 40s, you probably notice your skin is becoming more dry. Your weight changes, you might have itchy ears, you'll definitely get the mood changes. We become less tolerant, more irritable, heavier periods, shorter periods, missed periods, a hotter body,
Yeah,
definitely.
the hits just keep coming, don't they?
I know, it's such a fun time. But and sleep changes, that's
Yeah.
probably the biggest thing with women. All of those symptoms, but sleep is just a big challenge for a lot of women.
Yes.
And I think the symptoms do change once you've hit menopause and go into postmenopause. That's when you see more of the UTIs, the dryness causing more issues, bone loss, muscle loss, those sorts
Yeah.
of things. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's
So what is it during that time then? What are the things that women become deficient in terms of what would normally be a normal level leading up to perimenopause and menopause? What deficiencies do women start seeing in that time?
Yeah, I guess there's probably greater needs and rather than
Yep.
deficiencies, greater needs because we are experiencing higher levels of inflammation with the change in hormones and while our body's switching through to postmenopause. So it's almost like a tipping point for women with their health. And it's good to think of it like that because our body's more inflamed because we don't have estrogen and progesterone at the same levels that we're used to, which are both anti-inflammatory. So our body's got this higher level of inflammation. So we've got to support that by keeping inflammation down as much as we
Yep.
can. But while we are experiencing higher levels of stress, our body's using more things like vitamin C and the B vitamins that we sort of need to cope with stress. So with the greater needs, we have greater needs of vitamin D, definitely, because that vitamin D is important for bone health, for mood, for hormone health as well. B vitamins, because we churn through those when our body's in a high level of stress. Vitamin C, which is important. We also need omega-3. That's really important, and I think that gets missed a lot
Yep.
because omega-3 is our fat that we get from oily
Yep.
fish. A lot of people don't eat fish or don't like to for whatever reason. So taking a supplement, I think, is really important, and a good quality practitioner supplement, because they're the ones that are tested and from sources that, you know, are pure omega-3. And then we've got our protein. Protein definitely increases our requirements as we get older. And particularly as women in our 40s, we need to absolutely increase protein at every meal across the day. And that, I
Yep.
think that's really a big challenge and something that I talk about all the time. And other things are magnesium, which we get from lots of plant foods. But I actually believe women can benefit from supplementing with magnesium because it can make a huge difference to your sleep, your
Yep.
mood, and everything that's going on. I mean, there's over 300 actions that magnesium's involved in our body. And it's quite difficult to get enough magnesium across a day just from plant food. So that's something, there's some beautiful magnesium supplements that you can get that I love to prescribe for women. And also, as we age, we produce less collagen, which helps with skin hydration, inelasticity, and joint health, which is all emerging in recent research as well. So they're kind of the main ones. That seems like a lot, but
Yeah.
what I do with people is really incorporate all of those in the diet as much as possible, and then we look at supplementing ones that we just can't get enough of in our diet.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. And I mean, obviously, I'm certainly a huge advocate for all those things, and obviously, particularly collagen, obviously, without sort of putting too fine a point on it. But I do know that as I have gotten older, definitely adding more protein into my diet has been really crucial, along with also doing some key, I think, exercises as well. And I think bone strength is such a big one as well for women. You know, low bearing weight training, those sorts of things, anything that's going to help strengthen your joints and bones. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that goes without saying. It's unfortunate because a lot of the messages out there are like, oh, women should really take it easy. But I think they don't understand that you've got to actually focus on the long-term health. You've got another 30, 40 years of your life after menopause, and you want to be strong, you want to be fit, falling over. And now is the time to be building that muscle for strength and to support your health and your brain health. Like, it supports everything.
Yeah.
So while we don't need to do all that cardio that we may have done when we were younger, we need to keep going with building that strength. And unfortunately, sometimes we can feel like there's a lot of body aches and pains and we don't have as much energy as what we're used to. But actually pushing ourselves to go and do that sort of weight training gives you more energy, improves your mood, and improves that that ache and pain that you can feel.
Yeah. So what sort of, from a nutritional perspective then, Ali, what sort of foods do you think really at this point in time for women going through those stages, they really need to look at? You've mentioned fish for obviously the omega-3s, and obviously vitamin C. Most people would kind of automatically think of, you know, citruses instead of citrus fruits and those sorts of things in terms of vitamin C. So what other foods and what sort of diet focus things can you sort of give us recommendations on?
Yeah, I think like one thing when thinking about building your plate each meal is thinking, okay, have I got enough protein in there? Have I got a minimum of 20 grams of protein at each meal? And that can be a big shift for a lot of women, but we need to get into that mindset of you don't build your meal around bread and rice and pasta, which like that's probably culturally we've always been taught to think like that.
Yeah.
But we've moved well away from that. That's food that you can include in your diet, but that should not be the main focus or the base. And I think we've always thought about that as the base because it's easy and it tastes good, but it does not support your health long term. So what we need to think about is what is your protein? What is and that protein includes things like your meat, your fish, your legumes, your tofu and tempeh, and eggs. They're the main sources of good quality protein that you can include in your meals. And then adding to that, it's like what plant foods that are really good fiber sources to add to that. Because as we're moving through this transition, our gut health is changing a lot because of the change in hormones. I won't go into too much detail about it because it's information, but knowing that women do experience more bloating and changes in their bowel movements because our gut is changing because of the hormones, which are directly linked to our gut health. So we need to keep feeding all that bacteria in our gut with good sources of fiber that come from plant foods. So lots of your leafy greens, your brassica vegetables like cauliflower, broccoli, cabbage, all those sorts of foods. And just think about any plant foods that you love and including them at every meal can be a really way to make sure you're supporting your health. And so a good example might be like for your breakfast, you have your protein, but you add lots of seeds and nuts and things like that. That can be a good way to include those sorts of foods because they're high in fiber and support your health. And then at lunchtime, you're looking at maybe you like eggs, so you would add lots of veggies to that, easy veggies that cook with eggs to make it really simple. And then at night, you might have fish or you might have legumes or you might have chicken and you add like things like sweet potato, leafy greens again, and different veggies just to help, like to make sure you're getting in lots of variety and lots of different plants. And look, that might sound really easy, but it's a matter of planning and thinking about what do you like and then just doing that on repeat and making sure there's variety across the 3 meals. And and that's really an easy thing to do. once.
Yeah, and I think that's the key, is that you've got to like what you're eating too. It's all very well to go, okay, I have to have more of this. But if you don't like it, don't necessarily have it, but find something else that's got the equal amount of nutrients in it, but it's something that you really like, you know. And
Yeah,
sometimes you can just come up with these great flavor combos, like when I bring my lunch, you know, into the office, you know, those great bags you can get of all the different types of coleslaws with kale slaw and all those sorts of things. They're so easy. You can just grab, you can tip them into a container, add a tin of tuna, add a tin of chickpeas, and then just, you know, mix it all together at work, and it's just an easy bowl, you know, of food that's got so much nutrition in it, and it's going to keep you fuller for
yeah,
longer into the afternoon when
yeah,
you start to kind of get the you know,
yeah,
get the sleepies happening. So find the foods that you like, that you know are in those, you know, key nutritional groups, and go hog wild on those, is what I say.
yeah, absolutely. And it's about like eating the rainbow. I mean, that's what it really comes back to. Like, do you love berries? Do you love capsicum and carrots
Mm.
and mushrooms? And they're all different colors, and thinking about it that way, like, are there lots of different colors across your day? The recommendation is to aim for 30 different plants a week for good gut health. And that's quite overwhelming for a lot of people. But when you actually sit down and write it down, it doesn't need to be. And when we're talking about plants, we're talking about legumes, seeds, nuts, whole grains, fruit and veg. So it's like a big variety of different food groups that you can eat across the day. And if you like a savory breakfast that's eggs, that's totally fine too. And you can have like a traditional breakfast for dinner. That's totally fine as well. There's no rules around that, but just making sure there's lots of variety.
Yeah.
And you know, that adds fiber to your day, which then helps support your gut. And it just does make a huge difference to how you feel each day. I see it every day. Like, women come in and we just make those small changes, and I give them examples of meals, and they're just like, oh my God, I feel completely different. And it's
That's right.
just, yeah, it's quite life changing. So it's really good to,
Yeah, and I think just removing a lot of the processed foods out of your diet as well. You know, getting rid of, you know, things that come out of, you know, too many, you know, jars and things like that. Just minimizing, you know, obviously the good quality stuff that's, you know, organic, organically sourced and sustainably sourced, or whatever it is. But as much as you can, making the bulk of your diet coming from all that fresh fruit and nutrition, and then supplementing it all with the additional things that you need in order to really beef it up during
yeah,
that time. But it just sets you up then, doesn't it, as you say, for the next 30 or 40 years. That means that you can get out and really enjoy your life, and maybe try some new activities or try new exercises that maybe you haven't done before, but just feel as though you're really kind of living your best life through, you know, just good nutrition and being there, you know, and enjoying the rest of our lives, you know, not to be too morbid, but at the end of the day, you
yeah,
want to make the most of it, really, don't you want to? Mm.
yeah, we have to think like that because we do live longer now. So we
Yeah.
want to be fit while we live longer. But also that inflammation goes up as we age anyway, but during this transition, this time in life, inflammation is high, and that's why we do feel the aches and pains, and we might see these changes in our skin, and like it manifests differently in everybody, but eating that sort of diet decreases inflammation, and we know that now. So when you think about food, you can think, well, diet either increases it or decreases
Yeah.
it. So let's opt for real food and learn how to make it taste good. And I think one of the best things women can do is understand how to make a really good salad, and just do that on repeat until you're completely sick of it and move on.
That's
If
right.
you can do that, then you're streets ahead of, like, you know, you're just looking after yourself so well. But when we're just eating like crap salad that is just an iceberg lettuce with a bit of carrot and tomato, that's totally
Yeah.
boring. Our body doesn't get much from that. We've got to be adding in all these beautiful foods that we may not even think about, that
Yeah.
we can actually add, that give us so much and help our liver, help our skin, help so much,
Yeah.
and make us so much more energized as well.
Yeah. But I think the key is, I think, for women is that, you know, you don't have to, I suppose, during this time, it's not the end of the world. You don't have to suffer. Obviously, you need to always consult with your doctors and your GPs and your health professionals to make sure that you've got, you know, everything in place that you need. And then, you know, if you can then supplement all that, you know, hard work and effort with then supporting your body nutritionally, you know, through good diet, exercise, and just being aware of what vitamins you might need at different times, it does make the whole process, you know, a lot more kind of easier to weather, that's for sure. But so
yeah, you really do have to focus on the basics. I mean, there's a lot of information out now about MHT, which is menopause hormone therapy, which is necessary for good health, but you also need to be focusing on the basics, and that's, you know, things like hydration, good food, sleep routine, and movement and stress management. They're like really important to get right, and then thinking about what else you can do. But one thing I will say is, like, when women, I'm seeing a lot of women who get their bloods done, because I'll say to them, it's important to get them done at this stage of life because things are changing quite rapidly. That if you don't feel right, if you are completely fatigued and your GP says, oh, you're fine, get another opinion or come to someone like me, because what they're looking at and the reference ranges of blood test results are completely different to what I look at, because I look at feeling optimal. They're looking at sort of an unhealthy population reference ranges. So, and I see it day in, day out, where people come in and they're just crying because they feel so crap, and they've been told over and over again, you know, you're fine, but you're not. Like, I can see probably low in D or B12, or you know, your iron might not be right, because I'm looking at all the iron levels, not just one marker. So, and that's where I take the time to do that. So it's important to get a second opinion and, you know, really invest in your health. That's just such an important part of this journey at the moment, because it's it can make you feel pretty ordinary if you don't know what you're doing. And and you know, and you don't want to be rushing buying things at Woolies and Coles over the counter that just are not good quality. I see so much, I'm like, don't take it, it's full of crap and it doesn't do anything. So
that's amazing. Thank you, Ali. Look, I think we'll leave it there, but I think that has been really insightful. Hopefully everyone listening on the group, and if you haven't watched it now, you watch it back later, this has been helpful. Ali has a great newsletter that she sends out, which I will send you a link to her website with this post, so that you can sign up to her newsletter and some of her advice that she has in and around nutrition, and then, you know, contact her directly if you want some additional help down that road or some advice. But it's just so good to, sometimes we just get so caught up on the hurdy-gurdy of being on the treadmill of life that you just really forget, and it's not until maybe you hear something from someone that really resonates with you that you kind of have to sit up and kind of go, actually, I am feeling that way, or that does sound like something that I really could get on board with. And so hopefully this has helped you all kind of have a bit of a think about how you're going through all of that, and knowing that you don't have to do it alone, and you don't have to suffer, and you can feel, you know, good again. It's all okay.
Yeah, you don't. And I would, highly recommend getting support, because, you know, like the mood changes and then juggling life at this time, it just can be so hard for women. And if they don't understand that what is going on in the background is happening, it just can be so much, it can be so overwhelming, and people can just put it down to, oh, this is just life now. And it's like, no. Not.
Doesn't have to be. No. Well, thanks, Ali. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And I hope you have a great week. And to everyone, I'll put up all those links with the post. And I hope you're all doing well in our lead up to probably a really nice Easter break, hopefully in a couple of weeks' time. But thanks again, Ali. And I'll speak to you again soon, hun.
Okay, thanks so much, Jack.
See you, darling.
Okay,
bye.